A couple months ago, Head of Health and Human Resources Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appeared on Fox News. He spoke about a number of different things, but what I want to discuss in particular is his remarks about the current state of the Democratic Party. But first, I'll briefly explain where I'm at politically. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an independent. This most recent presidential election, I didn't vote for Trump or Harris. I actually voted for the Libertarian ticket. In my voting record over the years, I've actually voted for candidates from both parties, Republican and Democrat alike, because I rarely, if ever, find a political candidate who I agree with on every issue. I'm not, ideologically fixed across the board. What I mean by that is there are some issues I'm conservative on, and there's some other issues I side with the Democrats on. I think a lot of Americans are like that. Either they're independent or they might be a moderate Democrat or a moderate Republican. And for those of us who are politically independent or moderate, we're able to be much more objective when evaluating policies from both parties. People firmly on the right and on the left tend to be very, very emotional. They think emotionally, not logically. They already have their set beliefs about everything and everybody, so they seek out their respective echo chambers and consequently see things through that very, very narrow lens. They don't ever take a step back and objectively look at their respective political party and think, whoa, that's not right, or, that's kind of hypocritical. But we independents are able to be objective because we are not extreme right or extreme left. Okay, now to RFK Jr.'s commentary. He said, quote, "The Democratic Party that I grew up in does not exist anymore. The party I grew up in was the party of peace. It is now the party of war. It was the party of speech freedom and constitutional rights. It is now the party of censorship," unquote. Okay, now let's go through this and break this down. I don't 100% agree with the party of war statement. It was during the Obama administration when we left Iraq, and it was during the Biden administration when we finally left Afghanistan. But it was also during the Obama administration when we got involved in Libya and Syria. But look, when it comes to the military and American foreign policy in general, in my personal opinion, I think that the civilian part of our government, that is the people who we the voters send to Washington, D.C., I don't think they have any control over the military-industrial complex. I believe that civilian control is an illusion. I think that civilian control over the military-industrial complex ended when JFK was assassinated. But that's probably a story for another video if you want to join me down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. But yeah, I think the military-industrial complex executes its goals regardless of who's in the White House. You pray and hope that they don't have ulterior motives and are not getting the country involved in unnecessary wars, but who the hell knows? I'm pretty cynical in general. I don't trust people, especially people in power, but like I said, that's a story for another video. Now to the RFK Jr. points I agree with. Now, I don't think a lot of these things apply to Democrats as of right now here in the middle of 2025. They aren't in power at all. But a couple years ago, in the middle of the Biden administration, and especially during the pandemic, I would have agreed with pretty much all of this. The pandemic was scary, yes, but in my eyes, it wasn't scary because of COVID-19. It was scary because of how heavy-handed the government response to it was. The lockdowns, the vaccine mandates, the way that medical personnel were treated when they voiced their concerns. If you were hesitant or cautious about getting the jab, you were demonized. You were characterized as a terrible human being who didn't care about the health of your fellow Americans. And a lot of people lost their jobs. And yes, freedom of speech was under attack during this time. It was all hail Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. And if you publicly voiced any concern about the vaccine, yeah, it was going to be a problem. There was also some major free speech concerns when it came to all things gender. If you were not pro-kids transitioning, then you were a neo-Nazi as far as some were concerned. On social media, people that were expressing some very valid concerns over impressionable young kids being funneled into the gender transition pipeline, they were often censored, so there is some valid criticism there. Okay, now let's swing to the right side of the political aisle. When you observe the behavior, rhetoric, and policies coming out of the current administration, all the things RFK Jr. said here about the Democratic Party can be said about the Republican Party under President Trump. The party I grew up in was the party of peace. It is now the party of war. Come on now, folks. You see the current events. Do I even really need to explain this? We were under the impression, based on Trump's campaign, that we weren't going to be getting involved in these endless wars, but obviously, as it turns out, that's not the case. And this won't be ending anytime anytime soon, folks. This is going to be going beyond the end of Iran's nuclear program. They're going to be going for a regime change. It's going to be the U.S. right back in the nation-building business, just like Iraq. You guys got your Halliburton stock ready because it's about to pop. It was the party of speech freedom and constitutional rights. It is now the party of censorship. I mean, come on now. The Constitution has been taking a beating under this current administration. That's been one of the dominant themes of Trump's second term in office. The First Amendment is under relentless attack. For those of you unfamiliar with the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Freedom of the press, which is one of the hallmarks of a free society, is in danger right now. It is not the job of any news outlet to provide favorable coverage for any politician, but this administration is actively targeting news outlets it disagrees with. People on college campuses exercising their free speech rights are being targeted because this administration doesn't like their political views. It was pretty damn hypocritical when Vice President J.D. Vance was over in Europe up on some moral high horse scolding the government leadership there for not being tolerant of opposing views when he's part of an administration that is actively suppressing opposing views here at home. I mean, come on now, this is the pot calling the kettle black. We just need both parties to stop being hypocritical. We need some consistency. Look, I like RFK Jr., and I think out of all the people in the Trump administration, he's the most sincere in wanting to do right by the American people. He's taken on the food industry and the FDA. I think he's doing some good work trying to improve the health of Americans. But his current assessment of the Democratic Party applies to the Republican Party under Trump. And as conditions get worse in this country, in terms of our civil liberties being restricted and our deepening involvement in the latest regime change adventure in the Middle East, RFK Jr. is going to look around and realize that.